So what I'll do today is I'm going to add another package. So separate from the countdown timer, and I will call that package my UI package. So that will be a sibling to my countdown timer. So then the name of my second package is gvprojects.ui. And under that package, I'm going to create my GUI. So let me call it GUI timer. Okay. And then in addition to my GUI timer, I'm going to add another class. I'll call it timer panel. Okay, what is a timer panel? So the intention is to include several timer panels into your GUI, so then you can see several timer objects in there, right? But then now each panel, on each panel, I'm going to add a button, and because my timer panel is a type of panel, then I need to use inheritance. So later we will talk more about inheritance, but this is the basic step of inheriting a class from another class. So you just declare the class, name of the class, and then use the keyword extends jpanel. So what do I have in my jpanel? So I'm going to place a label, okay, to show me the output of my timer, because then you're going to use the toString of your timer, and then I'm going to use a button. So my button will be to randomize my, or to decrement my timer, for instance, right? So let's include a label here, and let me call it timeout. So the output of my timer, and I'm going to add a button. Let me call it decrement. Okay. So now, whenever you're working with a jpanel, then the default layout is a flow layout, and I want to change that. I want to change the default layout to a box layout. So then I can nicely place my JLabel and the button in a vertical layout. So then I'm going to change the layout of my panel. I'm going to use this .set layout, and I will say new box layout. Okay, and I know this is a lot of new information for you today. The new box layout. And now whenever you are declaring whenever you are instantiating a box layout, you have to supply two parameters. So the first parameter here is your container, your panel, and then the second argument is now the type of box layout you want to use here. So I want to use my box layout for this panel. So that's why I'm replacing arg0 with this, because the layout should be applied to my panel. And the second argument would be the type of box layout you want to use here. So let's say I want to put my label and sorry, I mistyped the type of decrement. It should be a J button, not a J label. J button. So I want to place my label and my button in a vertical layout. Okay. And I need to select the type of box layout, and you can see here we have 4 options, but I'm going to use y-axis. So imagine that you have like an imaginary y-axis on your screen, and then you want to place each item centered around that y-axis. Okay. So I'm going to use the y-axis, and then I need to instantiate my labels and buttons. Let me fix that error. I need to import, hover my mouse, and then import JButton. That should fix the error. Yep. And I need to instantiate my label, new JLabel, timer output goes here. Okay, and then I need to instantiate my button, new JButtons, and then I will say decrement. Okay, and then I need to place the both of them into my panel. So then I will say this add timeout. So I will place my label at the top, and then this add decrement will place my J button below my J label. Okay. So now, how do you control? Well, let's see what we got so far. Then later we can make some improvement. Okay. So now I have my timer panel as a separate class, right? And I have my GUI as a separate class. So then to allow you to see both of them, I'm going to drag. So then Eclipse will let you see both of them side by side. And you can see that we have the two different classes here. And let me continue to work with my GUI timer. So now let's say I'm going to declare first timer panel. Let me call it TP1, TP2. So let's use two panels and in my GUI. And as usual, every time you are instantiating a new GUI, you need to create your window, and window in Swing is a JFrame. JFrame. Let me call it top window. So then, as usual, you need to instantiate your JFrame. JFrame, put a title here, demo, and you need to pack, and you need to make it visible. Top window, set visible, true. Okay. Now, I'm going to place two panels, and this time I want to place my timer panel in a horizontal layout. Okay, in horizontal layout. So then, how do I do that? Well, then I need to use an intermediate panel. Okay, panel, and let me call it panel for timers. Panel for timers. So I'm going to instantiate my panel for timers. New JPanel. Okay. So same trick that I'm using for my set layout. So I'm using box layout in my timer panel, vertical, but now I want to use a horizontal layout for my panel for timers. So then I will say panel for timers, set layout, new box layout. Let me make this window wider so then you can see everything. Okay, box layout, and again you need to supply the two parameters. The first one is what? Well, we use this in timer panel, but the reason why I use this on my timer panel because I'm calling set layout from this, right? So that's why my box layout takes this parameter here because I'm calling set layout from this. Okay. So now if I call my set layout from panel for timers, then the first parameter of my box layout has to be panel for timers. Okay. And the second parameter will be the type of layout, and for this one I'm going to use horizontal, x-axis. So any questions so far about what I have on my screen? Well, I mean the code, not the GUI. You don't see anything the GUI output yet. So now then I'm going to place my two timer panel object. I need first to instantiate, right? So I need to instantiate new timer panel. So my timer panel is the class on the right side. So I need 2 of them. So I instantiate the second one. Okay, so then I have my panel for timers. Then I want to place TP1, TP2 into my panel for timers. Add TP1, and then panel for timers, add TP2. I know this is fast, but you have the recording, so then you can review it later at a slower pace. Okay. So now I have the 2 timer panels into my panel for timers, but the next step is to place my panel for timers into my top window, right? And let's place this at the center of your box layout. No, not box layout, sorry. Border layout. Border layout, remember a J-frame takes 5 sections, north, south, east, west, center, right? So I'm placing my panel for timers in the center of my J-frame. So let's see what we have. So let's run it. If I run this GUI timer, oh, I forgot to add my main. So I have to include a main to allow me to instantiate my GUI object. So now I have the main method that will instantiate a GUI object. Then you should see a GUI with 2 panels, right? Okay, so any question? So let's make it nicer. So let's put a border around my timer panel so then you can see the difference between the first and the second. And I'll just do this set border, and we are going to use a border factory, and I'm going to create a new create line border. So let's put a blue background, color blue, and that should do it. Okay, let me put them side by, like in a wider screen. I'm missing an import, so then if you fix the import, then now you should see the panel with a blue border. Okay, so now I want to center align my label and my button. How do I do that? So then I need to change my constructor, my timer panel constructor. So after you instantiate the 2 objects, and then you want to say timeout set alignment X. Set alignment X to swing constants center alignment. I need a different label here. Let me try JLabel dot center alignment. Okay, not action map, but alignment X. So that's what I need. So if I do set alignment X for both timeout and my button, then the effect will be to place the label and the button center around the y-axis. And let's look at the output. Okay, so now you see it's centered, right? Okay. So now, how do I handle the button? So whenever I press the timer, the decrement button, I want to update my counter, my countdown timer. So that in order to do that, then now I need to include my countdown timer object here inside my timer panel, right? Because I want to have like individual countdown timer for each panel. So let me call it my clock. Okay. So my clock, and let me instantiate my timer, my countdown timer, new countdown timer. Let me use the constructor that takes three parameters. Let me use just 3, 7, and 3, 10, 7. Okay, 3 hours, 10 minutes, and 7 seconds. And now I'm going to write an action listener to handle the click on my buttons. And if you remember how to do it, then basically you need to say decrement add action listener. Let me call it my deck handler. Okay, my decrement handler. So you get an error there because we don't have the declaration of my decrement handler yet. So I'm going to do it next. I'm going to declare an action listener, and the name of my listener is my deck handler. And I'm going to instantiate an action listener object, and I think I show you this in class or maybe on the video, but if you just press Control Space, then one of the options is to instantiate action listener. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do two actions: decrement my counter, decrement my timer, and then update the label, right? Update the label. So how do I decrement my counter? Well, I already have my clock object, and I already instantiate my clock object with 3 hours, 10 minutes, and 7 seconds. And what I need to do is just my clock decrement, right? Do I have that? Maybe I don't. You should have that method in your countdown timer. Maybe I don't have that here. So let me add a decrement. I think I don't have that method. So now let me quick add my decrement, public void decrement. And instead of doing the actual decrement, what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a random number. So my random number would be generated by using my random object. So you know how to use random from 1 to 2, and I need to just call rand next, and let me generate a random number between 0 and 9. So I'm using 10 there. So then you will get a random number between 0 and 9. I'm going to do the same for random minute. Random minute should be random next int 60. It will give you a random value between 0 and 59, and I'm doing the same thing for second. 60 there. Okay, so now I have my decrement method. If I go back to my timer panel, then my action listener should be able to call my decrement method. And then the next step is to update my label. In order to update my label, I just need to set text on my JLabel with the output of my clock, right? And you have the toString method from your clock that will return the timer in the format of hour colon minute colon second. Okay, assuming I have my toString. Do I have my toString? I don't. I don't have my toString, so I have to write my toString. Okay, so then again, let me complete my toString here. public string to string, and let me just make a shortcut, string format d %02d %02d. Oops. If you have some C programming background, probably you know what I'm doing. If you don't worry about it. My goal today is not to show you how to use the format of string, but just to show you the GUI setup quickly. Okay, so I'm returning hour, minutes, and second in that format, and then if I go back to my timer panel, then every time I hit the decrement button, then you should see a random timer on your GUI, right? By calling these two calls there, because the first one will generate a random output, and let's check. Yes. So if I press the decrement button, then you will see random numbers there. Of course, for your output, it should be like the actual decrement of your timer, right? So that's how you include the two timer panels in your GUI. Any question? Okay, let me add one more. What if you want to automatically decrement your timer periodically? So in that case, what we do is to add a timer object, and I'm going to use a swing timer. So when you control space on timer, then you will get three options. Make sure you're using timer from javax.swing. Okay, so timer from javax.swing. Let me call it a ticker. And here, so again, I'm doing this inside my timer panel, not inside my GUI. Let me instantiate my ticker object. Ticker is a timer, new timer, and you need to supply two parameters. The delay, let me activate my timer once every second, and then my listener is my decrement handler. Okay, so I'm lazy to generate another action listener, but I'm using the same listener, but you got the idea. And then here now I can say ticker start. So now the logic now is the timer will expire every 1 second, and then it will call my action listener method, my deck handler, and it will do the same stuff. Decrement the timer and then update the label, right? So let's run it. Where's my run button? It's here. So now you see that the output is updated by random timer and automatic by using the timer of your GUI.